Hello, this is Bran. Let's start with a testosterone update. So this is my third week on testosterone. Yes, I can totally count. I haven't noticed any big changes. I think my voice control has gotten a little bit better and continued to improve, but I am not sure because I've never been good at listening to my own voice, and my friends don't think have really noticed, so it's probably all in my head. But I'm still happy about it, so that's good. My roommate helped me set up the location of the camera again. Thank you!
Did I set it up?
You did set it up. I just left it in the same place it was before. And let's see. I didn't get as energetic after I took my testosterone shot this week, probably because I got up at like 4 in the morning and was really tired, and then gave myself the shot at around 8:30 because that's how long it took for me to psych myself up and figure out all the stuff with the new needles, because I got slightly different needles this time, and also there was nobody around, so nobody was telling me, oh, you're fine, whatever, just do it. So I did it. I accidentally stabbed myself in the finger again, so now I understand why you're supposed to use different needles for drawing it out of the thing and stabbing yourself, because I wouldn't want to inject testosterone into my finger. That sounds really bad. So, but it all worked out. I'm all good. I'm all good. Life is good. Life continues. And I'm super energetic now, so that's nice. Because I got more sleep. Sleep is important, kids. Life has been good. I am no longer incredibly busy and staying up super late, so got my planning back to a reasonable level after my, oh yes, I can work out all the time phase. So that's fun. Yes, life is good. The question of the week, moving right along, is questions not to ask a trans person. So there's, like, you can come up with a list of questions to ask or not ask a trans person. But the key underlying thing that you can remember that will help you in any situation is, okay, pretend this person is not trans. Remove all transness from the question. Is it still a question that you would be willing to ask this person? Like, if you meet a random stranger on the street and this is a woman named Mrs. La La Land or something, and you notice that her husband is named Mr. La La Land, there's a high probability that she changed her name, right? Like, it's very unusual that people marry somebody with the same last name, and La La Land is a completely very rare last name. But do you ask her the second you meet her what her maiden name is? Probably not. So, should you ask a trans person you just met what their birth name is? Probably not. See, very logical. Do you ask somebody who you're only a passing acquaintance with about their genitals or what surgeries they've gone through? Probably not. So would you ask a trans person that you know that well if they've had bottom surgery? Probably not. On the other hand, if you're dating a trans person and you're planning on having sex with this trans person, it probably makes sense to ask this question so that you're not surprised. If you have a friend who you talk about all sorts of intimate details with and they've mentioned something like testosterone therapy or or different kinds of surgeries that they're considering, sure, it makes sense to ask them if they're continuing to think about it, for the same reason that it makes sense if they were continuing to think about getting like an ear pierced, or if they had some big surgery coming up for a disease that they were really worried about. So just think about it. Think about this trans person as a person, and think about the question as a totally, like, non-queer question, and think to yourself, should I be asking this? Yes, no, maybe. And if they're your friend and you ask an inappropriate question, they're probably not going to be so offended But if it's somebody who you don't really know that well, don't ask intimate probing details about their sex life. Duh. Anyway, but another good question, another interesting way of phrasing this question is, what questions should you ask a trans person? This is a much better question, right? Because you can't relate back to your experiences with non-trans people to come up with questions that you should ask a trans person because they're trans. So what questions are these? The first one is, what are your pronouns? And honestly, trans people and queer people in general would love it if you just asked everyone this question. If you want to make a really welcoming space for LGBTQIA people, you can even introduce yourself as, hey, I'm Bran, I use he, him pronouns. What are your name and pronouns? That's a great question. It makes people feel comfortable that they can say what their pronouns are, and they won't be outing themselves if they're just starting to pass and they don't know if they pass in this situation or not, and they don't want to be seen as trans. They don't have to worry about that because you've basically established that everybody says what their pronouns are. That's awesome. Love that. A lot of trans people have chosen their name. Asking somebody why they chose their name, another great question. I love talking about my name. I'm really proud of my name. So I love getting a chance to talk about that, and that's a great question. It's a personal choice. If somebody who isn't trans changes their name, then asking them why they chose their name is also a great question. And then the third question is, that's good to ask a trans person is, how comfortable are you with people knowing you're trans? Now, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'm Bran, my pronouns are he, his, and him, and yes, I'm trans, they've probably told everybody. That's how I introduce myself sometimes, and I'm pretty open about it. But if somebody is not totally open with it, if they mention to you, like, on the side, like, hey, so I'm actually trans, or hey, I'm starting to go by these pronouns, then it's usually a good idea to ask, okay, who are you comfortable with knowing about this? Have you told your parents? Have you told your close friends? Have you told your coworkers? Because you don't want to accidentally out someone as trans. That's bad. For all sorts of reasons. You shouldn't share somebody's intimate secrets, or secrets that they're not comfortable sharing with other people, without their permission. So it's good to establish that early on. So you really do not want to accidentally out someone to their parents. That's whole levels of suckiness that you don't want. So good question to ask that you wouldn't necessarily ask otherwise. That pretty much wraps that up. If you have any particular questions that you would like to ask, please do, so that I can answer questions. That would be lovely. Bye!